So more interesting and really good news on the front of the Nintendo Switch 2 is happening as Nintendo is gearing up for this big launch coming off of the reveal that set the internet ablaze. 18 million plus views, 1 million likes plus, 100,000 comments plus, and millions more of views across social media all over the place. It's getting kind of crazy, but things are cooling off a bit and developers have started to talk about the system a little bit more. We're getting some things from third-party developers. We're getting some stuff from content creators in addition to independent developers on this system. And there's been a lot of movement that should be positive towards the launch. And of course, that big April 2nd Nintendo Switch 2 Direct that Nintendo does have planned. So we're going to go over some of the newest developments. That's absolutely great news, in addition to some other information as well. Before we get into all that, what's good everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you are someone new, and click that notification bell to get my vids as soon as they drop. Now let's go ahead and jump into this first one here. Shout outs to WCCF Tech. They are covering this, but the Nintendo Switch 2 CPU, that's something that people have been talking about. Will it be able to handle the intensive processes that we see on the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series? Will it be able to hold up? Well, it seems like things are going to look good on that front. There isn't too much concern at this point when it comes to new games and ports, because apparently porting games to the PS5 to the Nintendo Switch will be easier in comparison to porting games from the PlayStation 4 to the original Nintendo Switch 1. And this is something that I talked about quite a lot on my own, considering the type of architecture and the new style that Nintendo is going with DLSS and other things with the CPU. It's a massive bump over Nintendo Switch 1 and should make things better, especially with the RAM bump as well. But let's get into what the article is about and who's talking about this. So the Nintendo Switch CPU will not be a massive problem for ports and multi-platform games, as additional optimization work to get these games running decently on the system. FamiBoards user Matt, again, who is a known developer who has worked in the video game industry for a long time, provided some valuable insights in the past, recently commented on the newly revealed system, highlighting how the Nintendo Switch 2 CPU, while being the part that deviates the most from the standards set by the system overall, is not going to be the cause of concern for developers, as no one making a Switch 2 game from the ground up is complaining about it. The only small complaint have come from developers working on ports, which will apparently require a bit more CPU optimization work. Compared to how relatively easily graphical resources can scale to the GPU, this additional CPU optimization work, however, isn't anything that shouldn't be expected going from a power-hungry x86, which PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series run on plus PC, to a mobile ARM CPU, which is what the Nintendo Switch 2 is using. So, for the time being, the system's CPU shouldn't be an impediment, and as a whole, porting a PlayStation 5 game to the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be much easier than porting a PlayStation 4 game to the original Nintendo Switch, which is definitely good news. Now, the fact that porting games to the Nintendo Switch 2 should be easier than porting games to the predecessor is definitely great news, as this should allow third-party developers to support the system with ease. Very few games have been confirmed for the new Nintendo consoles, but according to rumors, plenty of big publishers are looking into supporting the console heavily, such as Microsoft, who's reportedly working on ports of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2, Halo, the Master Chief Collection, Diablo 4, Fallout 4, and even Starfield. That is in addition to Square Enix with Final Fantasy VII Remake, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and Bandai Namco with Tekken 8, and there's been a host of other games. I'm going to work on a video talk about all the games that are rumored at this point for the Nintendo Switch 2, and we can talk about that. But yeah, this is definitely a good thing. Now, remember, there's two distinct things that were said here from Matt. Again, developers that are working on ground up games, obviously there's no issue. You're working on that system. It's a huge jump above from there. You're not taking something else and trying to adapt it to one thing. So that's going to make it way easier just starting something from the ground up instead of having to kind of change and optimize and kind of tinker around in order to get it to work on this when it's something different in the first place. But I think that, yes, that CPU bump, obviously the RAM bump, the architecture being better, newer, DLSS, all of these things are going to help developers get these these ports over better, faster, and easier than trying to do it from PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 to the original Nintendo Switch. And from PlayStation 5 to Nintendo Switch would be, I think for some developers, almost impossible if just trying to get that. Although we have seen some things here and there. We saw it with like Mortal Kombat 1, for example. Not necessarily the best example because of how it turned out, but they ended up patching it and getting it as good as they could, considering the mass difference in hardware power. So obviously when you're jumping up in power from the Nintendo Switch 1 to Nintendo Switch 2, you're jumping up with what you can do with resources, newer architecture, all of that. Of course, it's going to be way easier than what it was before. So I don't see it being an issue. I never felt that it would be, because I felt that Nintendo would address that, and it seems like they absolutely did with the current specs that are in the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, there are some rumors about exactly what these specs are going to be and all of that. I think we have to wait, but there are some rumors. We talked about the specs, what it could be and all that. We've heard about the leaks in terms of the RAM and stuff. So I think that once we actually get the system, I think we can talk more about that and kind of see everything that's going on there. But I think it's pretty cool, though, overall, that this is definitely a good sign starting out compared to some of the stuff that we saw with the Nintendo Switch 1, which wasn't necessarily a good sign starting out from third-party developers and getting ports over. We just saw some things here and there, and everyone was shocked because, like, it's an impossible port, like Doom, for example, on the Nintendo Switch. So we'll see how it works. But now let's get into some actual official information here straight from Nintendo. If you were wondering how these magnets are going to work in terms of attaching your Nintendo Switch 2 Joy-Cons to the base unit, well, Nintendo has released a snappy little video to talk about. So an official new look of the Nintendo Switch 2 gives us our first glimpse of how the Nintendo Switch 2 Joy-Cons are disconnected from the system. As you can see right here in the clip, the Switch 2 Joy-Cons have a new button on the back that you'll pull to disconnect the Joy-Con. As you can see, pulling the trigger will push a peg out of the Joy-Con in order to push away from the Nintendo Switch 2 unit itself. This will cause a disconnect between the magnet, freeing the Joy-Con very easily. Now, there's been some stuff, people saying that, oh man, they might fall off, or they're not going to be strong enough, or there's other things like that. But no, if you want to take them off, you just go ahead and just press that button in there. It locks it into place, so you shouldn't have any issue, or there shouldn't be any major problems overall when it comes down to it. And I think that doing it this way could kind of, I would say, reduce that little wiggle that the Nintendo Switch 1 Joy-Cons had connected to the system if you didn't have, like, let's say, like a satisfied grip holding it into place better. So I do feel that people are still going to use satisfied grips and all of that, but there are some people who don't want to use that. But having this official look at the Joy-Cons and the disconnection here is good. And I think that this type of mechanic and, I would say, trapping system to lock it into place and make it a bit more flush and smooth on the top, I think it's an overall way better look. They've refined this look multiple times now between the Nintendo Switch 1, the Nintendo Switch V2, the Nintendo Switch Lite, the Nintendo Switch OLED. So now we're coming up on pretty much the best design of the Nintendo Switch system that we've seen to this point. I think that this locking mechanism, in addition to how the game looks overall, what they first showed us with the unit, it's super sleek and it's going to be a good system. We know about potentially the Hall effect joysticks that people have been kind of talking about, and I do think that that's going to happen considering Nintendo did a patent for Hall effect. It looks like it's going to be a pretty good design of the system overall, but of course, we have to wait and see till we actually get it in our hands and into our homes and see how it operates after use. So we'll see how that works. But we're going to move on to the next thing that's probably more exciting than a locking mechanism, and that is more AAA major third-party support. Something that the Nintendo Switch 2, I think, absolutely needs. First party needs to be the driver. You need to have those massive first party games in order to carry the system, in order to get people to buy the system. And then the third party is the supplemental stuff when you don't have a first party game, or if somebody wants something a little bit different that comes in afterwards. But they're both incredibly important, and Nintendo Switch 2 seems to be heading towards having these big third party games, because apparently every major third party developer is considering the Nintendo Switch 2 for their, quote, most ambitious AAA titles, it is claimed. So Nintendo Switch 2 is probably powerful enough to handle these most ambitious AAA titles. This is something that, once again, we already covered a little bit. We're going to continue covering developers like Ubisoft, EA, Bandai Namco, and more, which we already know about Ubisoft. They put out a "We love Nintendo Switch 2." So what does that mean? Yeah, it means their games are coming over now at this point. So I definitely think it means that. Now, following the Nintendo Switch 2's official reveal last week, the hype surrounding it and this next generation hybrid system has only grown. After months of leaks, rumors, and whispers across the internet, fans finally got a glimpse of the console. While the reveal trailer didn't share the technical specifications, it gave just enough to fuel the speculation of what games could accompany the system at launch. fans eager to see how the Switch 2 will perform with these modern games. Now, questions about third-party support have always been around when it comes to Nintendo systems. The Nintendo Switch 1 was no stranger to that, and there's going to be questions with the Nintendo Switch 2 and even after it launches. But it does seem like Nintendo's trying to remedy this. Now, this is what the insider claims. According to a report from a YouTuber well known as PH Brazil, or TV Brazil, they're calling it here on this website, the Nintendo Switch 2 has caught the attention of nearly every major third-party developer, including Ubisoft, Microsoft, Sega, EA, and Bandai Namco. Their latest statement sheds light on why Nintendo Switch 2 might be different from its predecessor when it comes to third-party support. In the video, PH Brazil explained, quote, Nintendo Switch 2 is powerful enough that basically every third party is considering supporting it with its most ambitious AAA titles. This is very different from what has happened in the past when some of these companies would support Nintendo platforms with conversions of older games or maybe recent but not so ambitious ones. Right now, companies like Ubisoft, Electronic Arts, Bandai Namco, Capcom, Sega, and Microsoft consider the Nintendo Switch 2 a platform strong enough to handle all of their most ambitious titles. Now, this take aligns with the previous reports that has described the Nintendo Switch 2 as having hardware capable of running modern AAA games. While the exact specifications remain unconfirmed, insiders suggest it could perform on par with devices like the PlayStation 4 Pro or Xbox Series S, albeit with its own hybrid console advantages, like DLSS, for example. It's worth noting that none of this is officially confirmed, so just keep that in mind. There's also the unconfirmed specs that I alluded to, and the game post also put up, so I'll put that up for you guys as well, but these are unconfirmed. Now, I can kind of confirm to you guys a couple different things here. There are definitely big AAA modern games coming over. We know this is going to happen. Nintendo put up a slide that talked about some of their strengthening with third-party developers. They went out and got somebody, I think from PlayStation, in order to run those, I would say, conversations between them and the third parties. If you're looking at the industry overall, especially when it comes to Japanese titles, there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They need the Nintendo Switch 2. That is something that they absolutely need overall. Look at the landscape in Japan. The Xbox Series is not a factor at all, and PlayStation 5 still is outsold heavily by the Nintendo Switch. Most of the titles in the top 30 are Nintendo Switch games, and the Nintendo Switch 1, even though it's 8+ years old at this point, it's still selling better than every other system by a large amount. So that energy and that, I would say, sales is going to transfer over to the Nintendo Switch 2. So Japanese developers are absolutely going to support the heck out of this thing. Sega, Capcom, Bandai Namco, Koei Tecmo, Nihon Falcom, all of them, they're all going to support this. And yeah, these specs in terms of what we think it's going to be or what's been leaked out there definitely help get some of these bigger titles that maybe missed out on the Nintendo Switch. And I do believe that there's going to be a lot of surprising and interesting big AAA titles that are on the Nintendo Switch 2 in the first year or the launch window-ish or so plus, which was very different from what we saw with the Nintendo Switch 1, where it was kind of just like some titles here and there. Then like Bethesda kind of came in at the end. We had some Resident Evil stuff or stuff from like the PlayStation 3 and 360, you know, some cross-gen stuff with PS3, PS4. There wasn't really a lot of the biggest, most modern titles in terms of what we saw there. We actually saw that a little bit more with the Wii U launch in terms of the games that were coming out that were on the PS3 and 360 and the big modern titles because of the hardware that Nintendo Wii U was compared to what the Wii was. So we actually did see that a bit more there, and it kind of disappeared with the Nintendo Switch until a bit later, and some developers were able to get their conversions and all that. Now there's other factors to that, as in developers didn't necessarily believe in the Nintendo Switch after the failure of the Wii U and them just not supporting the Nintendo 3DS. There was really no incentive, or there was really no reason to go out there and rush and support the Nintendo Switch 1, especially when, yeah, it would take a bit more work to get these ports done and all of that. But with the Nintendo Switch 2, the PS5 and the Xbox Series, they're still going. Developers are still supporting that. And the next generation of systems, who knows when that's going to be, maybe the next 2 or 3 years. And even then, you can't fully only go on those systems because of rising cost of development in addition to install base that you have there. So you kind of have to go where the install base and money is going to be as well. So I do feel that the Nintendo Switch 2 is absolutely going to get a lot of this. And what we're hearing here is accurate. A lot of these leaks and a lot of these insider information that we've been getting more closer to this reveal that we recently got has turned out to be true. So I think it's going to continue here. And at Nintendo's big April 2nd Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, I think we're going to see quite a number of these third-party games that have been rumored show up, considering Nintendo has essentially said it in their slide, saying strengthening third-party support. All of these developers were listed on there, in addition to a lot of the leaks that have came out, the different stock keeping units that were in various databases like in France and stuff like that from big developers and publishers out there. So yeah, I think it's happening, guys. I think it's going to be good. Like I said, not everything. I don't think it's going to be like every single game no matter what, but there's definitely going to be considerably more than what we saw at the launch of the Nintendo Switch and even into the years of that system. So what do you guys think about all of these Nintendo Switch 2 topics? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch RPG videos and more right here on screen. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.